Hello and welcome. Today in this video I'm going to be talking about IAM, Identity Access Management, on Google Cloud. If you're new to the channel, my name's Chris. I am a senior engineer and I've been working with cloud and Kubernetes for the last 5 years. In a previous video we set up a Google Cloud project for the first time, getting over all the hurdles that sometimes trip us up when we first create a project. Now let's take that project and build something on top of it. In this video we're going to look at creating 3 service accounts to prepare us for a task further down the road. An application service account, pipeline service account, and also a developer service account. So here's the plan. We're going to spend about 10-15 minutes going over some of the fundamentals and theory, and then we'll do some practical after that and actually create them service accounts that we just spoke about. Now, when it comes down to IAM and Identity Access Management, what it really boils down to is who am I, what can I do, and where can I do it? You know, when we talk about our personal account, let's say the one we currently created our projects with, they are owner level privileges and we could probably do pretty much everything with them. You know, they are not something you want to put everywhere. That is your user account. That is related to you and only you should use it. It should never be used in any kind of application code, any kind of pipelines. That's why service accounts exist. You know, we have service accounts, these robotic accounts, if you will, that are for the machines to use. Personal account, for you, not for code. Service account, for code, easy as. Heaven forbid your personal account should ever be compromised by you accidentally pushing it out to your Git repo, exposing it for the world to see. That's just going to give them access. They'll be able to get whatever you have. If it's your admin credentials for your Google Cloud project, you can say goodbye to your project. And if you do that on production, like for an employer, you can possibly be facing some kind of reprimand for that. Yeah. So don't do it. Just avoid it. Create a service account. That's what it's there for. So when we talk about least privilege, it's kind of like this mindset, this principle, best practice that we should all be following and we should all be doing. Only giving what we need. No more, no less. If an application needs read permissions, you're not going to give them object admin, right? Because if they have object admin, then they can delete stuff, they can write. Say that was running in Kubernetes and like the cluster became compromised, they would then have write access to that bucket, which could be a bucket that was serving your front end. And that's it. You know, it's something we just want to avoid. So least privilege is the way to go. So if the service account, the application only needs read permissions, you would give it something a lot finer tuned, like object viewer or something like that. That way they can read the contents of the bucket, but they can't actually edit it or manipulate it in any such way. Now, when you originally have a look, you might see that there's these basic roles that Google Cloud has made for us. You can just give it editor roles and it will solve your problem. And this is kind of like a common trap a lot of people fall into, whereas, wow, it may feel great initially, it's not best practice, and if it gets compromised, we're going to lose out. And although it's tempting, try and avoid them basic roles. Anything that gives more than what it should. The editor role gives an awful lot of power, and we want to avoid using that at all costs. So these are the 3 service accounts that we are going to be building and the permissions that we're going to be assigning to them. Based on what we're planning to achieve by the end of it, these should be the correct permissions. However, it's worth noting that sometimes things don't go according to plan. I have scoped out these permissions and it should be correct, but we won't know if it is until we start putting it into practice, and then if we have to manipulate them and add a piece by piece, then we can go down that route. One of the things I've experienced from working in this sort of environment is that the docs and everything, you can follow it to the T, but sometimes there's a little hiccup, there's a little niggle, and it will just catch you out. And that's okay, as long as we know how to resolve it. So the first service account we're going to be creating is for the application. That's going to have SQL access, it's going to have storage access, and it's going to have logging access. The pipeline service account, we're going to give it artifact registry. If you don't know what that is basically somewhere we're going to store all our images. It is a container registry. You can store Helm in it and lots of other packages, but we're going to be storing like container images, the equivalent of like a Docker container registry. Artifact Registry is Google's new flavor. They decommissioned their old one. It has a much broader range of support. We're going to give it a container role and also a service account user. The dev role is the third account that we're going to be creating. And again, we're going to be giving it storage. We're going to give it SQL and artifact registry. These are all important, and as we go through it, it will become apparent as to why they need these permissions and where they go. But again, the approach we're taking here is one service account per job. Like, it's here to do one thing. So the pipeline service account is there to manage the pipeline, so it will have a service account. I could do one account that does all three of these, but I don't want that because that increases our blast radius for when things go wrong. The smaller the permissions, the smaller the blast radius. I want to quickly touch on Workload Identity Manager. Now, this is a fantastic tool, and for the last few years especially, I've tried to use this wherever possible. Now, it used to be that we create a service account, you download the JSON key, and then you need to put the JSON key somewhere. You know, whether that be in GitHub Actions, in their secrets, whether that be in some kind of external secret manager, it doesn't matter. Like, they have to be somewhere for the application to actually access the keys, right? So that they can use the keys to authenticate to get in. And that's great, that's the way it was done, but they're still keys, they're passwords at the end of the day. And if they become compromised, then it's all for naught. So that's why it's not great. If you can avoid it now, using something like Workload Identity is much better. It doesn't require keys, it doesn't require passwords, it's all kind of mapped using very clever service account linking, really. I mean, you could take something like GKE, you have your Kubernetes service account, you add an annotation linking it to the Google service account, and then you just manage the permission from the Google IAM. That's it, easy as, you know? No downloading keys here. Without further ado, let's jump into the practical. If you're enjoying the video so far, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel and like the video. Feel free to post a comment down below. It all helps the channel grow. So here we are at the dashboard of our newly created project. Again, if you haven't seen the video, check it out up here. You can see how we create the project from scratch and enable billing and everything like that. I'm going to go ahead and have a look, and we're going to go straight in to IAM permissions. So I'm going to hit the burger menu on the left-hand side, and I'm just going to jump over to IAM. I can get rid of my search in the top there. And we can see here, there's not a lot going on, right? There's not a lot here right now, and that's okay because we haven't configured anything. We have a default compute service account. That's what happens when you enable the compute API. And then we've got my service account as well. This is the one that I created. As you can see here, I have the owner role. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new service account, right? So we're going to do that, and this is going to be the one for our application. We're going to call this CloudTask app. It's going to give us an email address that we'll be able to use, and that will be what will be relevant when we're actually building things further down the line. So this is going to be an application service account. When creating these service accounts, especially through the UI, it's very intuitive and straightforward. So we can go through this. And since we know the roles that we actually want, we can search for them. If we were to jump back to our presentation, we can see here we're going to be given Cloud SQL, storage, and logging to this application. So let's do that. Using the search box is actually a great way of finding them. So we can see here we're going to go for client. And then we're going to just add another role. Search down here and storage object viewer. Now we can see here it actually does, if I was to go back to that, so what did I say? Object, right? If I was to go back to that, we can actually see here that it does actually give us kind of like a brief sort of like overview of this predefined role. You know, grants access to the view objects and their metadata. Can also list objects in the bucket, because it's very, when you start working with GCP quite a lot, you'll realize that there is two types of storage access, and there's like object storage and also storage. Yeah. And again, that's for another time, but it exists. And the last one we're going to go for is logs writer, which is basically, as we can see, access to write logs. So overall, I think this looks about right. I thought I'd just quickly jump in here. So when it comes to Google Access Control and IAMs, if we look to the presentation, you can see that I use kind of like the naming convention with a period in the middle, and then the name of it. So logging.logswriter. And if you put that into their IAM search here, it doesn't actually come up. So what you can do is you can Google it and we can come find the documentation. And in here, we'll see that there is all the different definitions. So these are the actual roles that are inside the predefined roles. So the permissions that it has. So the one that I was referencing here is roles login.logwriter. So if you were using the API in something like Terraform, this is what you would use. And if you're using the AI, if you were using the UI, then that is what you would use. So we've got our 3 permissions here. Let's continue. Okay, we haven't got anything to put here, so we're just going to carry on and we're going to click done. This doesn't take that long. If not, if it's going to be virtually instant. Yep, there it is, instant. So we can see there our service account has been created, there's our email address, and there's our name, and our description, application service account. I did keep it very brief for the purposes of this. If I wanted to review the permissions of that service account, I can go into IAM and I can see here that we've got SQL client, logs writer, and storage object viewer. If I needed to update them permissions, I can do it in edit principal here. Very straightforward, very intuitive. One thing to note is you can see the type here on the left. Here is my user account, which has, a little user picture. And then we've got a service account, which has this key. If I was inclined to actually download the JSON keys, here is where I would do it. I can manage keys and I can pull them down. But we're going to try and avoid doing that if we don't have to. So I'm going to carry on and I'm going to create the other 2 service accounts. So we've got CloudTask CICD, and this is going to be our pipeline service account. And we're going to give it the relevant permissions it needs. So it needs artifact registry, which I should be able to find with just searching on artifact, writer. We want writer. We want the container. We want the container developer, which is the Kubernetes engine. And we want cluster viewer, container engine developer. We also want the IAM service account user. Service account user, which I always can never find because I type it wrong. There it is. Okay, service account user. Basically, it can run our operations as a service account. So that's fine. We don't have to worry about principals here either. So that's 2 out of 3. Let's go ahead and do the 4th one. The 3rd one. CloudTask dev. All right. So this is going to be a developer service account. Create and continue. Developer. There we go. All right, and then we go give it the roles. SQL client. Object admin. It's worth noting as well that because I actually used storage object admin previously, it is available in currently used. So I can go here and it should be here. Oh, no, it's not because we're using the viewer. So ignore me, but had we were using viewer, then it is there in currently used. So we can just go back and do what we did. Admin, storage admin, object admin, there we go. And the last role is artifact writer. So this one is the same and we can just assign it there. So when you're kind of like creating service accounts which have very similar permissions but in different areas, that kind of thing is kind of useful. There we go. So we can see here we have 3 service accounts. So we have our application, our pipeline, and our developer service account with clear names, clear descriptions, and no keys created, which is good. At this point, we have our permissions, which we can see via the IAM console, and everything looks about right. So as a quick recap, what we have done, we have created 3 service accounts. We have used correct role assignments with least privilege, as we've discussed previously, and also that's kind of like it. We're ready. So that is the foundation of our next task, which is actually going to be creating some of this CloudTask resources to then use these service accounts. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please do go back through it and make sure that we've created everything that needs to be created before jumping into the next episode where we'll start actually building the resources that consume these service accounts that we've created.